Hello, we're here at the German Nationals 2025 and I went 8-3-1, bubble top 128, really unfortunate because last year I had the same standing but a better tiebreaker, and this tournament I lost late in the tournament, so ended up with a reverse tiebreaker, which doesn't make any sense at all, but I guess it is what it is. Anyways, I think 8 wins, 3 losses and 1 draw is pretty solid for the deck that I played Tearlaments. And with a little bit more luck or better matchups in general, I could have easily done top 128 like I was supposed to do. In general, I think this deck was really underrated, and lots of people didn't even know what most of my cards do, and that benefited me a lot. For example, I got so many hand traps wasted on the Tearlaments cards, and then I could do full wins with combo because they just already used the hand traps. And yeah, I think I enjoyed it a lot. I also felt I was playing a lot better compared to last year. I was completely outplaying some people. Yeah, played way above my level, and that felt really amazing. When you play into a board, for example, Mentor going second, and then just break the board, outgrind and win. That felt so satisfying. And now let's start with the deck. So it's a 60 card grace list, and I decided to split the pile up into 5 categories. So here we have the tier engine, which is obviously 1 Sharon, 1 Hafness, 1 Merle, please bring it back to 2, and then 3 Rhino Heart, 3 Tier Cash, and then for the Ishizo cards, only 1 Modora. I was considering to play Keldo, but Roberto Pisani topped with only Modora and no Keldo, and I trusted him on this evaluation. I think there were a few games where I missed Keldo, but I also don't know what I would cut for Keldo. Yeah, it was a game state, for example, where I resolved Grass and then I had the Rainbow Bridge and the Turtle. I also later milled both planets while I still had the Trivikama in the graveyard, so I couldn't resolve neither the Rainbow Bridge nor the Trivikama because I just milled all my field spells and the Crystal Beast charges that I need to have in my deck for the Rainbow Bridge to resolve. And I couldn't put back the Turtle because my opponent banished my Tearlaments with a hard-drawn Bolt Drag. That was really dumb. Maybe in a spot like this, Keldo would have been beneficial. But as I said, I don't know what card to cut for Keldo. And then only 2 planets. I think 2 is enough. You most of the times don't want to start with this because it plays into draw, and it's a strong push sometimes when you want to pop the opponent's board, but it's not a really crazy card by itself anymore.
You kind of rather want to search it later on, right?
Yeah, you want to search it later with Rainbow Bridge, Trivikama. You have 2 cards to do that, and I guess searching Pearl Rhino later in a combo is fine. I think very often you want to start with the Horus Field spell or the Race Off instead of Pearl Rhino. Yeah. Then True Scream, I thought about it for a while and then I decided to play it too. Even though the reasoning from Roberto Pisani was not that convincing in the video, but I felt you need a critical mass of Tearlaments cards in order to banish them for Tier Cash. It came up where I lacked Tearlaments or Kashiro cards in my graveyard, and I had to banish something, and in games like this, having the Scream in the graveyard just as a bench for Tier Cash was really helpful. Also, I think I milled it a couple of times, but usually I didn't mill that often with this deck. It sounds crazy for a Tearlaments deck, but this is how you play the deck currently. You don't focus super hard on the mills and just play it more as a field swift control deck, which has a lot more gas than the other decks. Yeah. So milling Scream is fine. I think I also drew it in the Regenesis matchup, and in this matchup around 12, it helped me to beat over the opponent's monsters, especially Protoss. So yeah, the debuff came up. I think 2 is fine, even though you should probably side out both copies, both sides.
Both copies even.
Yeah. But going first, this card is nice as a mill. It makes the end board better. It can sometimes bait hand traps, for example, dash on the Rhino Heart. When you have already a tier name in the hand, then you can go Garura, and then with Rhino Heart and Garura you can make Fiendsmith combo. And the opponent thought they made a good play by Ashen Guess, but no, it was most of the times incorrect to Ashen Scream there. And then for the traps, 2 Salik, someone suggested to me to put this up to 3, but I don't know, so 2 felt enough most of the times. Milling it is really strong, but you also do not want to throw it that often going second. Oh, by the way, sometimes it can be helpful if you start to mill your deck to have additional tier cards in the hands for Reinhardt. And having the screen in the hand when you mill Reinhardt was something that came up in my theory when thinking about the ratios, and that was the other reason why I decided to keep the 2 scream and not cut the scream down to 1. Also, the person suggested to replace 1 scream with Damotev in the testing of my hands. I felt in majority of the hands, Damotev in a deck wouldn't be better over having scream in the hand. Yeah, 2 scream. It felt weird to justify this ratio, but it felt correct during the tournament. And then 1 meta noise. Yeah, you can search this against a couple of matchups, especially if the opponent has Kash cards, but it's also often stronger into Malice than Salik, and my opponent started with 1 Malice monster, meta noise, and then skipped this entire turn. So yeah, this card was pretty strong when I drew it, but very often I just decided it out. But I think this ratio felt still pretty good, so I would keep it like this. And then some side engines that make the tier engine a lot better. The Crystal Beast engine with the 2 Rainbow Bridge. Some people played 3, but I felt 2 should be enough. And then 3V Karma, I was at the beginning a little bit skeptical about only 1 3V Karma, but then when playing this deck, I felt the 1 3V Karma more and more justifiable, because without Grief you don't have that many cards you want to search. It's realistically only the planet most of the times, or the second trap if you have already the first trap as a search from Scream. This came up once I think, but I was so far ahead that it didn't really matter in this game anyways. Yeah, maybe if you play Grief then you can play 2 3V Karma, because then 3V Karma is an actual extended, works under draw, while 3V Karma into planet doesn't work under draw. So it was one of the main concerns with playing 2 3V Karma in a format where most of people are on draw either in the main deck or in the side deck. So 1 3V Karma felt correct. And then the Kashira cards, I think this engine was really strong the entire day. Helped me a lot when playing Intermalice boards, but also Birth and Unicorn is insane against any Mitsu deck. Yeah, round 1 I won because I just banished all of the Mitsu stuff with Birth after the opponent resolved the ritual, and that was just too much to recover for him. Yeah, and he was also playing defensive engine, and then Engraver effect, okay, on resolution, Unicorn with the Requiem, and then Engraver was basically a vanilla, so his defensive engine didn't do anything after we resolved Unicorn and ripped the Requiem. Also shoutouts to Jan for lending me those 2. And then the Horus engine with the 3 Imseti, 1 Harpy, and 3 Sark. I think this engine is insane, especially in a pile deck like this going second. The opponent has a really hard time interrupting you when you have them on the board, because if the opponent doesn't move anything, then you get either the add back or the non-targeting center from Imseti. This came up against White Forest, where this guy was able to out the Saint Asamina, a 4K wall that I cannot target. Yeah, and this came up in a Memento match that I won, where I completely outplayed my opponent. So he went Maze to steal my Unicorn, then banished my Moon of the Closed Heaven from the extra deck. And then he popped the King Sark. So I went, okay, King Sark, add back the Salik from the graveyard, and then the Moon that he banished face down, we had a judge call because he wasn't convinced that this can add back face down vanish cards. But yes, this one can add back face down vanish cards. And then after I broke his board, I went Fiends with combo after I added back the Moon and then destroyed him. That was such a satisfying feeling resolving Harpy in a game state like this. And then probably the strongest engine of this entire deck, Fiendsmith. As I said before, it's more a Fiendsmith control deck with lots of gas compared to normal Fiendsmith control decks. With 3 Engraver, Yeah, just having 3 copies helped me a lot. I had some lines where I went through all 3 of them, trying to set up both Caesar and Disarray turn 1. And yes, there is a line where you can set up both. Yeah, Lacrima. By the way, sometimes I went shrugged, adding the Lacrima and then discarding something else, for example Rainbow Bridge or Trivi Karma. So having the option for this line is really cool. And then Lurie, 1 truck, having no space for the second one. Sometimes it might be better to hard draw the truck over the engraver, especially when the opponent has draw. Yeah, but this one as a mill isn't as good in the grind game as a milled engraver. Yeah, and then Paradise, amazing card, especially in combination with Kaleido Heart, because most people just tunnel vision and they want to send the opponent's cards, but in this deck it's very often better to send your own Kaleido Heart to get the Kaleido Heart shuffle, which might be stronger than sending one monster from the opponent. And then you get also Kaleido Heart into Breaker's Tapelia, so you get 2 interruptions with Paradise instead of only 1 Disarray sent on the opponent's card. And then the final category of cards in this deck, power cards, Trust, Talent, Stress. I think I never saw this card a single time throughout the entire tournament. On the other hand, I saw Grass maybe 2 or 3 times. It won me the majority of matches, but it didn't win every single game where it resolved. Because I had some really weird mills when I milled both Rainbow Bridges and a Turtle, or both Pearl or Rhino and the Trivi Karma. So I couldn't resolve my strongest possible mills in the deck, and the opponent hit me with White Binder, Ball Drake. Just terrible when Mallet has full combo plus custom hand traps on top of that. Yeah, but in the end, this card is still absurd. The reason why you play 60 cards in this deck and just go and Trust into Grass in some simplified game states is just auto win. So for example, in the 1 Malice match I went first, and my opponent hit me with Ash Blossom and Durisworm. I was almost unable to set up Caesar because of the Durisworm, and then after my opponent hit me with Durisworm, he had a monster on the field, and this allowed me to resolve Trust into Grass going first, and that was just game over. Also because of the fact that he hit me with a Biscuit, I knew it has to be Malice. So I figured out his deck, even though he conceded turn 1, that was really cool. And then some board breakers. Yeah, those are also really strong in this deck. Mainly because of the reasons you can use them after the search, and then the opponent can no longer respond with anything. So you can kind of get 2 searches undrawn Lockbird, because the opponent cannot respond with draw on the first search when you hit this with turn prior priority on resolution. And I did this play a couple of times. Opponent was like this, okay, on resolution, trying to drop the draw, and then I asked for trigger effects. He was confused. Trigger effects? No? Okay, super poly. And then he couldn't draw me, and he looked so dumb. Yeah. And then set rotation. The main idea was obviously outing the Ryzel Cross, but I only played single Ryzel throughout the entire tournament, and I only saw set rotation once, but not against Ryzel. It was against Runic Crystron. That game was so dumb, so he bricked on just the Runic engine, set rotation dealt with his entire Runic engine, and then crushed for game. Yeah, and then for more consistency, but also as a board breaker, kinda the Foolish Furry Goods with the Black Goat, which can shut down the detonator, but this never came up for me. On the other hand, the Black Goat Graveyard effect can be pretty strong when you know what to call against every single matchup. Unfortunately, I didn't prepare for every single matchup, especially against Crystron. I was really underprepared against Crystron, so this was not a serious interruption when I needed something to interrupt Crystron. Yeah, just poor preparation on my side. Could have done better with more preparation for decks like Crystron. Yeah. And the extra deck, Kaleido, still the MVP of this deck. Amazing in grind games, especially against Murakumo. Opponent just regains the entire field. Cool, this one comes back. And some people didn't even know that this one comes back, or they ask me every single time, so what does this do when it is sent to the graveyard? And they were scared, oh no, I'm not supposed to pop anything here. Yeah, they were really scared of this card when this one hit the board. Then Drago Stapelia, Garura, Sumless play without this card, but it came up a decent amount of times from me. Not only is super Politage it, but also when I hard drew any tier name and had Reinhardt. Because Reinhardt plus any tier name in the hand is a Fiends with combo if you have Garura in the extra deck. I think I probably made Garura more often than the Mud Dragon. Yeah, but in general you need all of those, especially with Super Poli. And then Zombie Vampire for the Horus stuff. And then for the Fiends of Engine, Caesar, Desiree, Necroquip, Agnamde, Sequence, Moon, and Requiem. I think all of those cards were absolutely amazing in very simplified game sets that I had a couple of times today. They were so astonishing. So just one engraver in the graveyard puts up so much pressure on the opponent, especially when you have the option to go Sequence into Agnamde turn 3. And sometimes the opponent is already pretty low on life points because of the own effects, like Malice, which has to pay a lot during the combo, and if you can deny the GWC, then you can go for this and kill the opponent with the piercing damage from Agnamde. And this is how I won against Malice in round 10. And in round 11, very similar stuff against White Forest. Opponent had Diabellstar Vengeance, which has to pay half of the entire life points. And having something with piercing damage when the opponent already paid half is just insane. But also protecting Desiree against targeting effects, which came up in the next turn, made this one protected against SP, so this one won me simplified game sets. And then Sprint, SP and IP, I think I made those cards the least amount of times, but they are still pretty strong. Unless the opponent hits you with a hard drawn Fenrir on the endboards like Caesar plus IP. That was really unfortunate, but I still managed to win this game. Yeah. So Fiends with Engine, definitely amazing, and this card really strong. I think Roberto was absolutely correct here with having this one in extra deck. You need this against Malice, but it's also helpful against some other green shit, for example Saint Casamina. It could be a win con in games like this if you have it. Yeah. And as I said before, Desiree, just to send your own Collider Heart is so absurd in this deck. And still playing the entire extra deck with the Ruka sleeves from YCS Osaka 2022. They just look amazing. And then for the side deck, we have 3 Fuvalos. I think I just resolved it once against my mentor. Then Purulia. Shotouts to Fabian for lending me those. Funny enough, I didn't draw a single card from Purulia throughout the entire tournament. But having Purulia as Aqua for Kaleido Heart won me 2 games. Yeah. And then Brawl for Mitsu and Lancea for Malice. And depending on the matchup, you side any number of Mold Chummies, either just Fuvalos or Purulia and Fuvalos and roll when you play against Rise of Mitsu. And those 9 against Malice. Yeah. And then scatter shots you definitely need it because this deck takes so much time to play. Even when you are playing it very fast, sometimes the pace of your opponent's play is not in your control. And very often I finish the matches, even the matches that I won 2-0 with less than 5 minutes remaining. Yeah, I never won a single game because I resolved this in timeout. But I was near timeout extremely often.
It's just comfortable to have it, right?
Yeah. No, it's not only comfortable, it's absolutely mandatory. Because as I said before, sometimes the pace of your opponent's play is not in your control and you need to have the option to go for this whenever you can't go for a lethal line.
Yes.
Yeah, that comes up a lot. You want to set up a lethal line, but you simply don't have enough time. And I lost against one Malice. It was probably the most frustrating last throughout the entire tournament. I could have won that if I just had maybe 2 or 3 more minutes on the time. The biggest mistake was obviously that I overlooked the Modora in my graveyard and I couldn't use the Modora to prevent the GWC, to prevent his life points gain. I had to speed run playing into full Malice board with just 5 minutes on the clock, and that was not enough. It would have been a clean win either without the call by on Lancia or by him playing faster. So then the last match, and then we have some trust targets. This one for Lancia, but Lancia is not only good against Malice, it also hits first run, and it hit Regenesis Kashtira, which I played in round 12. Yeah, so I trusted into this against Malice and he instantly scooped it, and this one is supposed to be good against Rizel, but I played against only one Rizel, so I don't know if you should play this card or deep barrier over this card to have more coverage for pure Mitsu. But in general, I felt like this deck is a pretty solid matchup into pure Mitsu, especially if you open the cash cards. And the Murakumo discard can actually benefit you sometimes if you're able to discard your bricks.
So, how were the matchups today?
The matchups were round 1, Mitsurugi Riser, which I won 2-0. Round 2, Mitsurugi Fiendsmith, also a clean 2-0. Round 3, the Runic Crystron. I was really unfamiliar with this deck, so this one ended up in a draw. And then I said to myself, I just don't want to play against a single Crystron through the entire tournament anymore. Round 4, pure Crystron. Are you fucking kidding me? Yeah, I lost at 1-0-2. Then round 5, I won against Malice 2-1. Round 6, I lost against Malice 1-2. And that was actually the match that I have to complain the most. Not only because my opponent hard drew called by Lancia, but he was also playing slower than you are supposed to play simple textbook spreadsheet lines with this deck. And he ended up resolving GWC twice shortly before timeout, and I had to speed run, breaking the entire Malice board in less than 5 minutes. Then round 7, Memento 1-0, and then we ended up in time, so it gave me just a match win. Really rare sportsmanship on his side, but we had a phenomenal game. I went going second into his full board, and I played through everything, waited every single interaction. Then the play with Harpy, adding back my banished moon from the Unicorn to Fiendsmith combo. I still had 5 interruptions left after breaking the full Memento board, which is absolutely insane.
Damn.
Yeah, then round 8, I played only meta decks until round 8. Then round 8, I ran into Dynamorphia, which I won 2-0 because Caesar negating his fusion summon traps is just a really strong thing. And then game 2, he dropped the deck lockdown, sided Message of the Genomes, assuming this does something against me, but no, this doesn't do anything against me. Yeah, then the Horus cards completely killed him, a clean 2-0. And then round 9, my third and final loss during this tournament was against Pure Mitsu, where I opened a pretty weak hand into Troll, game 1, and he hit me with the full Mitsu board plus Troll. Game 2, he hit me with Courier, and my hand was like Fenrir, Tearkash, Harpy, Crystal Based Turtle, and Troll. But then he opened Murakumo and Ritual, so he had enough true Troll and more follow-up than I had. So that was just really unfortunate. I opened this poor in this matchup. Yeah, on the other hand, today my matchups were absolutely phenomenal. I 2-0'd Malice round 10. Round 11, I 2-0'd White Forest. And round 12, I won against Regenesis Kashtira, also with a 2-0. Although the opponent Protoss locked me on Dark 0 games, but I managed to recover due to my Fiendsmith engine.
Nice.
Yeah, this thing is just so insane in very simplified game states and grind games. We can just come back, make Desiree, and you have so many great top decks. Just top decking a single Rhino Heart under Scream with Curly Rhino is insane, because then you get the McGregor Stapelia, you get a Bob, and you get bodies to get in the defensive engine in case you don't have access to the defensive engine already. Yeah, those are my matchups.
Nice.
Yeah, I think I completely outplayed some of my opponents, made also some mistakes. that didn't matter in the long run, except for the one Malice match where I didn't force the opponent to play faster. That just cost me the match, which is super frustrating. But I'm happy that I didn't make any obvious throws compared to last German Nationals. It was just me not forcing the opponents to play faster. But I'm still pretty happy that I bubbled for 128 and ended up with a rank of 147, which is much better than over 2,000 other people in this entire tournament with a deck that is considered rogue or unplayable by the majority of players.
So, any last shoutouts?
Yeah, shoutouts to people from my locals who helped me testing. Lend me some cards. Shout out to Roberto who gave me the coaching in VC and encouraged me to play this deck, also explained me how to beat every single matchup and the side deck patterns. And also shoutouts to the entire tier community. Always great to have people appreciating each other when you try this deck seriously. Yeah.
Right. I think that's it then, right?
Yeah, that's it. So subscribe to my channel if you want to see more deck profiles like this. And see you next video. Have a nice day. Bye.